yes, SparkToro is audience research software. But I think a lot of people are like, audience research, what is that? I'm not. Okay, audience research, broadly speaking, just to set the baseline, means we're trying to understand a group of people, who they are, right? Demographics, what they like and hate, psychographics, how they behave, behavioral data. This is in order to, like, we don't just want it for its own sake. Information without a use case, I don't love it. It's so that you can make products and services people will actually want, right? So we try and understand people so that we can make better products for them, better services for them, and improve how we reach them, right? Where we reach them, with what messages we reach them, how we reach them. I like to separate audience into different groups because audience and customers are not the same thing. So there's people who have already bought from you, for example, bought your chef's knife in the past. There's potential customers, people who might buy your chef's knife. There are potential amplifiers, people who probably aren't buyers of the chef's knife, but maybe they work at publications, or they're journalists, or they're bloggers, or they have a popular Substack in the culinary world, or they're influential with other people. And then there's a broader community of people who just care about culinary things, right? And those people might also be folks who pay attention even if they are not particular customers. In our case, right, so with SparkToro itself, Amanda and my audience and SparkToro's audience reach hundreds of thousands of people, but probably there are only thousands or tens of thousands at any time who are potential customers of SparkToro, and that is just fine. That's actually a good thing. I worry when marketers overfocus on these on current customers rather than putting effort into potential amplifiers. That is really going to kill your reach and opportunity. Okay, so I like to Venn diagram this stuff. And so essentially, if you want that Venn diagram, it's like broad interest-based. A subset of those are potential customers. Obviously, a subset of those are current customers. And then there's overlap with those groups and potential amplifiers. And there's even some potential amplifiers over here that are outside of the interest-based community. I'm very proud of this Venn diagram, so I try and include it in every presentation. And the most successful marketing, in my experience, appeals to both the amplifiers, the people who are going to spread your message, and potential customers. All right. Oh man, we gotta change up the. How do we? Well, that was a mistake. All right.
That's showbiz, baby.
Yeah, ignore that. Somehow Amanda and Christy and I all missed these arrows. All right, so every smart marketing strategy, same core components. Target the right audience in places they pay attention with a message that resonates. And audience data is there to help show you who those people are, where they are, and what they potentially want. That's the whole goal, right? This is audience research is not just for its own sake. It is in order to serve these broader business and organizational goals. When you do it right, audience data helps you fight problematic opinions. I find this all the time. I find like bad assumptions about who our customers are or what they're interested in or what they care about. One of the things that I love about Casey, my co-founder, and the guy who does all the technology and programming for SparkToro, is that he constantly is skeptical of and questioning who the right customers are and what we should make for them. So, if you've ever been a marketer working with an exec, I bet you all have, it's, you sort of have a pitch and then, look, the exec is like, hey, I just want to be number one in this AI tool because that's what all my golf buddies are talking about. And you can say, oh, well, that's great. Yeah, we can definitely do that. We can work on that. Here's the data showing the behaviors of your audience. You can see that Perplexity is not in the, most used AI tools. And that data can fight those bad opinions. Same thing for demographic data, right? When you're trying to do campaigns or messaging design or direct outreach, sponsorships, all that kind of stuff. And oftentimes execs have strong opinions about creative, and you can fight that with data, right? By saying like, hey, here's the data about who our audience is. Here's the gender distribution, here's the age distribution, here's the jobs that they're in and the titles. And maybe Matlock is not the right choice for this particular demographic. So I mentioned that we would have a culinary example. I make a lot of risotto. And when I make risotto, I like to use a very particular kind of rice. I like carnaroli, or if I can get it, aged carnaroli, because the aging process makes the grain two things. It gives that the texture at the end, better al dente, chewier consistency, and the grain of rice gives off more starch when you cook and stir, which gives it that creamy texture that you're often looking for without having to add like tons and tons of cheese or butter, those kinds of things. So I really like this brand Acquerello. This other one, Azienda Agricola, is good too, but in order to make great risotto, which I've tried to perfect over many years, decades, in fact, I have consistently found this is the best brand for it. And you can see the results. Oh, look at Geraldine. She's so happy with, with her risotto. Yes, Jason, you still have to stir and stir. Look, man, you knew what you were getting into with the risotto. I will say, though, a lot of recipes say you have to stir for like 45 minutes or an hour. That is completely untrue. Most risotto, including Acquerello, even with the aged carnaroli, you should be able to do it in 25 minutes max. So just FYI. All right.
I agree with that. Just adding to that, when I went to culinary school, when we did our practical exams where we had to cook a meal, we usually had to cook it in under 45 minutes, and we had to be able to make risotto and under that while also making the main dish. So yeah, I think it took roughly 25 minutes.
Yeah. For folks asking about pressure cooker, so you need to be able to stir because the motion, the agitation, as I believe the America's Test Kitchen folks did a test where they tried to do the no stir or low stir techniques. You don't release as much of the starch, and so you will not get the same texture. But it's not that bad. I really like having dinner guests over and then making one of the dinner guests do the stirring while we're prepping the other stuff. It's nice, right? Like everybody gets involved in the cooking. All right. So from a marketing perspective, there are some people who, after listening to Amanda and I rave about risotto, will go to Google and search for the best rice for risotto. And millions of people do this search every year, but I think it's actually only tens of thousands of people who do this search every year. But certainly millions of people are cooking risotto and actually have that interest. And you want to know all the sources that influence them. So this is what audience data is great for. It's great for basically telling you, hey, this group of people, I want to reach home chefs who care about quality ingredients, in particular, the best kinds of rice to use for traditional Italian risotto. And this group of people, right, have these behaviors. They go to these social networks. They use these search and AI tools, right? So like, this is not surprising to me, by the way. See the bump in AOL and Yahoo? Like essentially that they're higher than average, which seems odd, right? It seems odd that Yahoo and AOL would be bigger than normal. But it is because those domains also have tons of recipe content on them, recipe and cooking content. Like AOL and Yahoo host a ton of content, and the clickstream data can only see the domain that's visited, not the total, not separating out the searches that are not visits to the domain. And so it's going to overweight AOL and Yahoo. This is one of the things to understand about like clickstream data and SparkToro in general, is that it is always using the visitation and cross-visitation data. So one of the things to, as you're looking at anything in SparkToro, if you're like, gosh, Substack seems particularly high. Well, there's a lot of recipe Substack stuff. Like Instagram seems quite high, and so does Reddit. Those are both cooking-centric destinations. It's not super surprising that they're on there. LinkedIn does surprise me. That one I'm a little baffled by, but Pinterest doesn't surprise me at all. I guess LinkedIn is actually not that much bigger than average. So it makes sense. GitHub's being smaller than average, Discord being smaller, those make sense. And then you can see, here's like websites that they visit, YouTube channels they subscribe to, podcasts they listen to. This data all makes sense. And this data is useful for saying, where should we broaden our risotto targeting efforts? The same thing is true for any marketing strategy. It's essentially, where does our audience hang out? Where can we reach them? But you can't just take this data wholesale and push it to, your client or your team or your process. You need to also use human review. This is one of the many reasons that I don't believe AI is going to replace a ton of people, especially in our industry, is that you have to use judgment in addition to data. And that judgment would be like, oh, some of these places are highly relevant to what we're doing, and some are not that relevant, even if they're visited by this audience. It could be the case, right, that a bunch of these risotto searchers are also interested in travel to Japan. You'll see that in SparkToro, right? You'll see like that random affinity data, but you have to use your brain to figure out like, oh, that's a random affinity that is not directly connected to what we should try and do. And so that's probably not a marketing opportunity. Same thing is true for social accounts, for subreddits. The eating healthy on a cheap budget, I'm not sure I do marketing there. Just because a bunch of the people subscribe to that doesn't mean that it is the best place to do marketing. Good example. Okay, I think every marketing strategy has these components like I showed you before. SparkToro cannot tell you if you are searching for the right people. This is another limitation of the product. This is another place where you have to use your brain. So remember the search that I did to start this off? I did a search that was essentially home chefs who are looking for the best ingredients specifically to make traditional Italian risotto. What if the audience should actually be narrower? Like a much more contained group, a group of people who are passionate about finding the best brands of specific rice that you use to make risotto. Vialone Nano, Arborio, Cannaroli. I don't recommend Arborio, by the way. I haven't had great results with it. Oh, right, then this has similar behaviors. There's definitely overlap, similar, but the Ask Culinary and food photos were not in there before. This, I think, with the exception of Bon Appetit and Epicurious, none of these other ones were in there. It's a different group with different behaviors. Then I tried it with a broader audience. I just said, hey, people who are interested in Italian cooking overall. And this group of people also different. So my recommendation here, right, is that you need to know who the audience that you're targeting. And then I would always, if you can, go broader and narrower, because you will find more marketing opportunities to do more branding types of things versus more specific content marketing types of things and different kinds of campaigns, different kinds of messaging too, right? You're messaging to people who already know that they're interested in these 3 kinds of risotto rice, very different than your people who are just thinking about Italian cooking. All right. The data is great at nailing the places. That's what it's really good at. So if you are trying to apply SparkToro data and audience data in general to your process and to your strategy, this is where it shines, so long as you have that right stuff. So directly actionable stuff in there, audience behaviors, which can help you make better personas, right? The broad persona, the narrow persona, the various different ones. Identify subgroups. In fact, I'm not sure if Casey's on this call, but he has a plan in the future, I think in 2027, to basically, when you describe an audience to us, we will also be able to show you subgroups within that audience that you might want to consider specifically searching for, which I think is very, very cool, right? Basically saying like, oh, if you're looking for people who are interested in Italian cooking, there's home chefs and professional chefs and people who care specifically about risotto, and those might be 3 different ones. You can use that knowledge to write better copy and create more relevant ads. The topics data, if you haven't checked out the topics section of SparkToro, or Take Action, which I'll show you in a sec, those are great for that. And then content, right? Should we do a risotto expert for a future webinar? Like, let's have Amanda in. She's going to tell us all the, everything she learned in culinary school about it.
No, but she uses arborio rice. We're not sure if we can trust her anymore.
You guys, I know what I'm going to get Amanda for Hanukkah. Yeah, get excited. You're about to receive a bunch of tins. Um,
I am
you
excited.
could uh, publish a correlation analysis like hey, we tested the starch content of the three different, risotto rices, and here's the overlap, and da 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 da. Do you want to go participate in risotto communities on Reddit, in Threads, on Blue Sky, in on Pinterest? And I would say, in our experience, Amanda, in my experience, what people tend to do with this data, and none of these are wrong, by the way, is find social media opportunities, like both which networks, high strategic level, and then specifically which accounts do we want to engage with, or which influencers do we want to work with, or what subsections do we want to participate in. Content opportunities, pretty obvious, like where am I going to place content, what am I going to write? And then ad targeting stuff, which a bunch of people use SparkToro for, essentially finding opportunities that are outside of the big tech monopolies to do their advertising. By the way, the one that I like the best, Aquarello, I don't know if they used audience data for this, but starting in 2020, 2021, they really started to take off in the US. They were almost unavailable here, but their big play was a PR campaign, I think in 21. Yeah, April 2021. Yeah, perfect. So 2021, they did a big PR campaign that basically focused on chefs. And then they did affiliate deals with a bunch of e-commerce sites, including Amazon. They now sell on Amazon, which you could never get them before. And highly successful. I think highly successful because the product is quite excellent. It's another, I want to have a whole webinar at some point about hey, your problem might not be marketing, it might be product. But in this case, that really shined. And now you can see they frequently come up because of that, because of that content. Hey, even ChatGPT thinks so. So, all right, great marketing, right message, right place, right audience. Ta-da! It's so simple. It sounds so easy. What's weird is it's the same as great marketing was in the 20th century, which is probably the same as it was in the 19th century.
Yeah,
And
it is
yet,
simple but not easy.
right,
Yeah.
simple but not easy. All right. So let's. I'm going to talk briefly through some of the sections in SparkToro and where that audience data comes from and a few potential needs to know, because that will. We think that knowing this stuff about how this audience data is compiled will help you make better decisions. So there's your dashboard, which will show you sort of all your lists. I think this is going to be updated soon, but all your lists and my custom audiences. Those lists are where I like to save data points. So I'll save the podcasts I'm targeting for something, or the PR opportunities or content ideas, topics, that kind of stuff. There's a bunch of ways to search SparkToro right now, but this is going to collapse relatively soon. We are testing a version of SparkToro, and I believe ready to roll it out, where describe audience becomes the primary way to do it. And that, it seems to us to be producing consistently better results. And so it's not that we're going to kill everything else, but describe is mostly going to be away. If you have an agency account or enterprise account, you can also upload a custom audience, which is sort of a list of domains, keywords, or email addresses. To be honest, I like describe better personally. I know it was a lot of work to build this, unfortunately, but I have found that if you describe your audience well, it's often superior to uploading even a group of the right emails. So just FYI, this is going to be the primary way, I think, going forward. It's natural language. People are really used to AI style prompts now. And I think this is going to get folks where they want to go. Okay, we've got that overview page, which you might have seen. If you haven't seen it before, we do have traffic estimates and audience estimates in the product now, especially if you search for websites. The demographics section, something to be very aware of with demographics. All our demographic data comes from LinkedIn. So our demographics are LinkedIn shaped, which means we miss people on two edges of sort of the world. One is folks who are older, who are not on LinkedIn, who are retired and folks at the early stages of their career where they don't yet have a LinkedIn profile, right? So like 18 to 25, we have relatively few demographics, 65 plus, very few demographics. And so often it's going to be LinkedIn shaped. The same thing is true with the bio keywords. For example, if you're targeting, I don't know, workers at, let's say in retail, right? Like checkout clerks and that kind of stuff. Very few of them put that in their bio, even if they have a LinkedIn profile, very few of them put that in there. And so you're going to get less data. Does this make sense? No, Gen X is in here. Marjorie, Gen X is going to be, we're good, right? Like we're still in the workforce and on LinkedIn. I think we're the most on LinkedIn. It's like Gen X has the highest percent, and then millennial. Granted, all the generations are arbitrary and not scientific, and you might as well use astrological science. Ooh, Amanda, should we add astrological science to SparkToro?
I think no, because astrology is not real.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I don't know.
I want you to know that's a very unpopular opinion among people in your demographic.
I know. I don't even know my children's zodiac signs. When people ask me, I'm like, I couldn't even guess.
Well, there's a lot of different zodiacs. Okay, all right, we're going to do a separate webinar on that. So all this years of experience, employer industries, job roles, I just want you to be aware that it's LinkedIn shaped. And also as a result of that, when you are looking for consumer stuff, like people who buy Nike shoes or something, the demographics on the professional side might not be as useful to you. The basics like age and gender, probably still useful. Okay, social networks. This data, this is the old social networks. The new social networks is even cooler. Wait, here, let's go. Well, I'll show you that in a sec. Social networks tells you basically which social networks your audience is using more and less than average, but very important, it does not say whether they're using it for your topic. So Codesmith, I mean, I think it's obvious that GitHub or Medium or whatever might be good places to participate, LinkedIn, obviously, but that doesn't necessarily mean, even though Facebook, for example, is the third most popular network with this group, that just means these people are visiting Facebook. It does not say that they are talking about, Codesmith's Learn to Code offerings on Facebook. Again, got to use your sort of human intuition and brain to figure these things out. We can tell you what people are doing. We can't tell you why they're doing it. Search and AI tools, same thing. So just because people are visiting Wikipedia and Amazon more than ChatGPT doesn't mean necessarily that that's a relevant place. Platforms, the platform data is by, I think we have like entertainment and finance and e-commerce, a whole bunch of others, particularly useful for consumer side. Same caveats apply. The website data, we do have trends in there now, so you will see that over time. You can click view history to get that history over time, which I think is really great. I'm hopeful that next year you can like save an audience and then be able to just see updated trends month over month, which we are switching to from quarterly to monthly data starting next year too. That's going to be a big update. Press and media, similar. This is hand curated, and I think we probably need to do another curation on this. But if you are targeting big media and national media, the reason you'll see this in a separate tab in particular, and with sometimes higher affinity than what's over here in the high affinity websites, is because we break those out so that you can specifically target, media if that's your goal, or you can see sort of behavioral data. What we found is that it's often unhelpful, or it doesn't seem to be as true that, if we show Forbes on the list of frequently visited websites by visitors to Codesmith, people are like, that could be anybody. Yes. So we break it out into press and media specifically. YouTube data, we're showing the basically channels that are, we aim here now for relevance and visitation, not just subscription, because there's a lot of random affinity data in YouTube. Like people who subscribe to Codesmith might also watch, I don't know, fitness videos. Great, but not really helpful. So we are filtering those. Same with podcasts. We're doing the same thing. Keyword data. This is searches, right, that people perform on Google. The only big thing to know here is we try and keep these a little more relevant, so similar filtering to what we do with podcasts and videos. But again, you cannot just take this and export it and start buying ads against these. I can't recommend that. I've known people who've done it using SparkToro because the top few looked relevant. Please make sure that you have a human being actually go through and figure out whether you should create content for these and target these in search engines and buy ads against them. It's not always the case that every single one is going to be relevant. High affinity doesn't mean high relevance. It just means these people are doing this thing. Topic data, similar story here, but I have found the topic data to be almost always on track, at least if the audience is well described. So I think this does make an LLM call to basically take search data, visitation data, other behavioral data, collapse that into topics of interest. One thing to note about this is the topics are not always trending. So we have a separate one for that. Content ideas, this is also using an LLM plus the topic data. I like these a lot. I find a bunch of topics in here. If you look at SparkToro's audience and then run that through SparkToro itself and see the content ideas, you will see things that Rand frequently talks about, because what do you know? Turns out this data is really good and helps me get hundreds of thousands of views on my LinkedIn posts. Actually, I'm sorry. Content ideas I like, but broad interest is the one I tend to use the most. This is my favorite one, especially for pitches and like showing people the data. I find broad interest to be, I don't know, it shines for me. Social accounts, similar to the other ones, like you need to, for example, the CDC, like, yes, they are probably followed by a bunch of people who are also looking for Learn to Code. Is that relevant to you? Not necessarily. So you got to do that filtering. Reddit, same story here. The subreddit data, you've got to comb through. I find it to be very, very good if the demographics are good. So really good for B2B, somewhat more challenging for B2C. The hidden gems concept, we get this question all the time. Hidden gems, the filter that we're using here, right, to give you like that different audience data is these are people or these are sources where the affinity tends to be relatively high compared to the traffic or number of YouTube subscribers or social account followers, whatever it is. It's a relative thing. So hidden gem means like for its size, this is quite influential. If you haven't seen it, by the way, not necessarily related to the audience data itself, but there's lots of chart customization. So if you're like, oh, I want to take the right screenshot to show my boss, client, put it in a pitch, whatever, that customization can be great. You can exclude ones here, and then you can scroll down on the list and choose the ones you want and add them to the chart. You can sort by different things. You don't have to do the thing where you export to Excel and then build your own graph. We know a bunch of people were doing that, and we were like, oh man, we should do that for you. That's quite a pain. So Casey built that, and it's great. You can also see that history for any of the websites or accounts, networks, very, very helpful. And this will be in the future switching from quarterly, like I said, to monthly. Okay, last thing I'm going to talk about before we do some live demoing, which we need to get to, is Take Action, which just launched. Take Action basically lets you take any audience that you search for and then answer the question we always get, which is like, this audience data is great. What do I do next? And so we took, along with Christy, Morrison, who helped build this, the 16 actions that people told us they used most frequently when they exported SparkToro's data and then uploaded it to an LLM or like to a next step taking, an AI tool or whatever. And those are what you will find in here. If you have other ones, if you're like, gosh, I export SparkToro data and then I use it to do blah, please tell us. We will add it in here. It's really quite great. So basically what happens is you take the action that you want. So in this case, I'm taking identify important and highly followed accounts, and I choose a social network. You can choose any network. So in this case, I think I chose LinkedIn specifically, and I'm targeting B2C because it's people who are learning to code. And then it's like, oh yeah, Dharmesh and Lex, and I'm like, oh yeah, this completely makes sense. Like this is exactly who this audience follows. High relevance, very high reach. There you go. You'll see this little note, like all AIs, it can be wrong, so you got to verify. But you can export these. You can save this data. You can start over and do it again. You can save multiple versions of these in your account. Casey's built a lot of great features. You can rate how compelling a landing page is. I like this one in particular. You can sort of get some scoring and then suggestions for it. Identify high impact media angles. We always ask these questions because what we found is just sending the data directly to an LLM plus even a good prompt didn't get us all the way there. It did not give the customization that you generally need. And so we ask these questions beforehand, which then provide the data essentially for an LLM plus SparkToro audience data to turn into really good marketing outcomes and suggestions. We have vetted these with literally hundreds of prompts or hundreds of runs and seen 98% accuracy. Like I found very few where it wasn't good. So I suggest you check those out. All right, last thing. How does SparkToro know all this stuff? How do we know all this audience data that you use to do all this stuff? Well, okay. Our primary data sources are these three, which is Datos. They're owned by SEMrush, which is now owned by Adobe or partially owned by SEMrush Adobe. Datos has a large panel of clickstream data. This is essentially every URL that people visit in their journey. This is on mobile and desktop. Then we use some Google searching through data for SEO, which to do some on-demand crawling, keyword data, that kind of stuff. And then LinkedIn. So we've got around 300 million public profiles from the US, UK, Canada. Technically, we have more from other places, but we only target those three geographies for right now. And then Casey does crawling of secondary sources directly. So whatever, Apple Podcasts and YouTube and Reddit and Facebook and Instagram, those kinds of places. I think it's quite possible that in the near future, we're going to be moving more to YouTube for podcast data because podcast listening behavior is shifting to YouTube. Oops. All right. So, right. Basically, when you search for an audience, especially using Describe, we translate that search into a list of domains that the audience visits. That's kind of the process. It's a list of direct and implied. And then using that data, we pull relevant profiles from the LinkedIn data set of like people who visit these domains, have these LinkedIn profiles, and then retrieve the associated behaviors with the audience. And that's how we build and display the full result. All that happens in just a few seconds. But that visitation demographic data is all based on this process. So this slide will be yours. And if you're ever like trying to explain to a client, how does SparkToro know all this stuff? There you go. All right. Instead of doing applications, what we're going to do is, some Q&A and live examples. And I'll pull those other ones up because I want to leave lots of room. So you can jump to the Q&A tab and ask us to go directly to your site, which I'd be happy to do. And we can do some SparkToro browsing around there. So yeah, does anyone have an audience that they would like me to run through? And any like questions about applications or those kinds of things too? Happy to do that. I know I'm nervous about the SEMrush Adobe acquisition too. I remember what happened with Moz, and like, oh man, acquisitions are not not always great for product quality. Sometimes they are, but okay. Manufacturing and defense contractors. Ooh, interesting.
Oh, interesting.
Manufacturing and defense contractors. Is it people who work at those companies? Would it be like management, Marjorie? Is that what you're thinking? I'll do that. Like decision makers. How about decision makers? Decision makers at manufacturing and defense contractors. Let's do United States. Let's see. So basically now it's running through exactly the process I just described to you, right? Where it goes, that data turns, that prompt turns into a list of behaviors, essentially website visitation data and demographic, like LinkedIn profile match data. And then from that, we're able to build the rest of the report. So everything is based on those two things, websites that they visit, and then we use the cross-domain visitation data from the clickstream panel and the demographics. And so you get something that looks like this. 80% male, that's probably not super surprising. And then social networks by audience. This is about what I would expect. Gosh, I guess high Twitter usage makes sense, right? Because maybe they're less sensitive to Elon's shenanigans than the rest of us. Pinterest lower. Yeah, so for folks who haven't seen this, by the way, let me blow it up a little bit. The new way that Casey is visualizing this inside SparkToro is like for Reddit, for example, we're saying that this audience usage, essentially 84% of the people who match this audience type visited Reddit in the last quarter. That is 4.4% higher than all Americans, or all Americans in our visitation set data from Datos, which was 80%. Hence, you see that number. And then we basically go in order from most to least used. So even though YouTube is a little less used by this group and Reddit a little more, YouTube is still generally bigger. And then you can see search and AI tools, same thing going on there. I am going to guess that this Yahoo is not them searching Yahoo, but visiting Yahoo because of the publishing stuff. This is one of those things where I want to talk to Datos and see if we can separate that out. That would be really great. But look at, so Copilot, Semantic Scholar. That is quite interesting. So the US average is 6.4 and then audience usage. I don't even know Semantic Scholar, but I wonder if there's some particular reason why military defense folks would use it. So, okay, defense news, aerospace, NDIA, I don't know, manufacturing, but this all looks right. And so essentially this audience data, if I were trying to target this group, I would then say, what are my goals? Like, what am I trying to accomplish? Am I working on messaging? Am I working on content? Am I working on pitches? And then I would take the relevant data and I would turn that into what I'm trying to do. For example, if we go to take action and I say, hey, I want to do some PR. Well, yeah, I want to identify some high impact media angles. And I've got research findings. I want earned media coverage. I am going national. It is B2B for sure. And I am we need to add a section. What industry or category does your brand operate in? I guess we're core enterprise B2B, but we might need to add a manufacturing industrial. Okay, what is my, I don't know. What's a defense contractor? Northrop Grumman, right? Aren't they there we go. All right, let's pretend I'm them. Boom. Okay, so then take action is essentially taking the data from that SparkToro, or the relevant data from that SparkToro research report, and then sending it to an LLM along with a prompt that includes all the answers to the form that I just filled out. And those two things combine to give, well, you'll see. I have found this to be quite excellent. But yeah, innovations and risk from lab to field. So you might say, oh, you know what? These four, not so great, but this one I really like. I'm going to copy that one. You can also copy all data. You can share this data with someone. So just like a classic sort of ChatGPT thing. If you want, you can create a new version. We'll like save the old version to your account, so you can access it again if you want. And then it'll give you sample headlines and amplification potential. It's I don't know. It's pretty darn good. Like it will not remove the need for you to do work, but it will save you a whole bunch of that brainstorming time and that creation and ideation stage, which I think is what AI is really good for. I really don't like it for directly creating, stuff that we're going to use. I don't trust it. I don't believe it does that well, but I do believe it does this ideation process like that. Okay, so confusion. Is this an action item Northrop could take based on audience research, or something I could do to reach them? The first one. This is the former, right? So this is essentially, if I'm Northrop Grumman and I want to have some high impact media angles to do my PR pitching to specifically publications that write about military and defense contractors, this is what I would go for, right? This is the process I would use. And then, yeah, the same thing is true when you fill out like, hey, I want to make a better landing page or that kind of thing. Let's see, engineering broken out. Okay. So, you mean like, yeah, Jason, you mean like in the drop down. That is a good idea. We should add that. Had an audience that was heavy on Semantic Scholar too. Had to look it up. Yeah. All right, I'll have to check them out. Amanda, do we have anything in Q&A?
We do. We have some questions here. I've sorted them by most upvotes. Okay, so Garvit asks, it's a longer question. Okay, I'll just read it. I work with a lot of small businesses. Most come to us for brand strategy, branding, and sometimes a marketing action plan. They rarely have the budgets needed for big visibility plays like podcasts, YouTube channels, but in most cases, they are working with only a few $1,000s a month to cover everything from content production to media buying. So given these constraints, I'm trying to understand how SparkToro can fit into their reality. So how can I use SparkToro in a way that genuinely serves these clients and helps them get more out of the limited budgets they have?
Yes. Would you go back to the beginning and describe what was that audience that he tends to be targeting?
Small businesses who are looking for like brand strategy.
Okay.
Don't typically have big budgets.
Right. All right. So sounds quite broad, but let's we go to my. Okay, I really like this one. So this is people who are looking for Neapolitan tailoring. What can I say? I might be visiting Napoli soon and getting some. I was like, oh, I should get a custom suit made. I've never had that before. Sounds really fun.
You should.
I found there was like some guy on Reddit who posted about it. Okay, so let's imagine these are small businesses, right? Most of the Neapolitan tailors are doing like maybe a couple $1 million in or euros in revenue per year, whatever it is. They tend to be quite small, and so what I would recommend here is basically taking this data and presenting it to the client and saying, hey, here are, for example, social networks where we think you should be participating. And I wouldn't just take this data directly, right? I would go in here and say, hey, I'm going to customize this chart. I'm going to edit the chart. And I'm going to remove, I don't think we should be participating in LinkedIn for this, or maybe Discord. So I'm going to remove that. I'm going to remove WhatsApp from the chart. Then I'm going to stop editing. Now I'm going to go down here and I'm going to add, I want Substack and Threads and Blue Sky on there. So I'm going to go add those to the graph. And now I'm going to take this screenshot. I'm going to put it in my report to the client. And I'm going to say, hey, we think this is generally the shape of where our social media promotion plan is going to be. We're going to create accounts across all of these. When we do content production, these are the places we're going to spread them. You should not expect that like Threads and Blue Sky and whatever Medium, oh, maybe we should remove GitHub too, are going to produce all that many results or return for us, but we're going to be building something over time with all of these and getting our message out to these audiences. This is sort of our pitch to you. And it's not about spending the money, right? The same thing would be true for like high affinity websites. It could be that every month we're going to do some pitching to 2 or 3 different potential partners. Like we're going to do a pitch to Gentleman's Gazette. We're going to do a pitch to Italy Magazine. We're going to do a pitch to, who do I like on here? Maybe Sneaker News. Yeah, potential. Oh, Pini Parma. Could do a partnership thing with them. Those opportunities, right, would be something where I'd like make the plan, right? You could edit this graph and put the right ones in there, show the affinity data, and then put that in as every month we're going to do 2 or 3 of these. And you can count on us to be targeting the right people in the right places. This would be true for every single one of these. If you're doing some YouTube advertising for them and spending a few $100s a month, you can show them YouTube channels that are reaching their audience. If you're doing, if you're trying to get the founder a guest spot on a podcast, right? You can take the right podcast and put them in there. By the way, do you see that King Arthur baking thing? This is because, so King Arthur baking, they've shown up a couple of times for this search. They are a random affinity. I would argue almost all of these are random affinities. And so I would not take this chart. I would edit this chart. I would remove a bunch of these, and then I would add the ones that are actually relevant to your process. Like this data might be interesting, but it's not necessarily useful for that. So that's.
Do you think that maybe some of these food theme affinities have any correlation to Neapolitan ice cream?
No, I think it's just because
okay.
My suspicion is there's so much overlap between Italian fashion and Italian travel and food that you get like that's what you see across here, which is why whatever King Arthur baking and America's Test Kitchen and like the YouTube stuff for some consumer things can really lean in this direction. We could do more topical filtering, I think. Maybe I'll talk to Casey about that on our all hands tomorrow. Yeah.
Maybe there's a relationship between Neapolitan ice cream and Starbucks being there.
Tailoring and ice cream. I mean, I wonder if the search keywords tell us more about what's going on there. There could be overlap in behavior in that fashion. Oops.
Okay, can we cover another question? We have a couple minutes left.
Yeah.
So Ted Fay asks, how about potential customers in new fields that you've not considered?
Potential customers in new fields that you haven't considered. I think in terms of basically reaching those. So if I had, for example, let's say Alert Mouse, right? One of my other companies, like if Alert Mouse was trying to reach brand managers at, B2B companies with venture funding, who are worried about brand safety, reputation, and sentiment, right? So this could be like a new audience, and you can essentially search for that audience and then get the behaviors and demographics. And one of the things I like doing with this, especially as I'm thinking about like product marketing, is figuring out whether this is the right audience for me. It might not be, right? Like I might look at the list of, especially the list of like website visitation behavior, and I can quickly sort of make a call. So for Alert Mouse, right, which is like a Google Alerts alternative, when I look at this and I see Brand Watch on here and I see Meltwater and Ad Age and PR Week, I'm like, this is my crowd. These are my people. I do want to target them. They are definitely the right kinds of folks. I want to go after this audience. But sometimes when I run these searches, right, and I describe an audience that I think is the right audience set, I get results back that tell me, no, I don't think this is the right audience segment for me. And that saves me from basically going after wrong people, which is just as valuable, in my opinion, as targeting the right ones. Cool. I think, yeah, more about discovering audiences, new audiences. Marjorie, I like your thinking on that, right? So essentially, like, I want to find audiences like this audience. And my one suggestion for that is something that you can do in here. So let's say, just for talking purposes, Ted, that this was your audience, right? Like this crowd is the people that you're going after. You could then take a look at website data and topic data and say something like, oh, you know what? I really want to go after the PR crowd. Like that is a similar audience to brand managers. The PR professionals who do work in-house, like that's going to be my people. So now I'm going to go describe audience and I'm going to say PR professionals who work in-house at B2B companies with venture backing. And that's going to be my similar audience. So essentially the report itself and the data you get about the crowd, right? You could look in demographics, you could look at the topics list, you could look at keywords they search for, whatever you want. When you find a relevant audience that's related, you can then perform that search as well. I think that's, that's sort of the process. I like this in demographics too, because sometimes you can go, ooh, do we have a special guest? Geraldine's here for the end of the webinar. Hi, cutie.
Hi.
Hi, what's up?
I just thought it was the end of the webinar and I wanted to say hi, everybody. And also Amanda, because I haven't seen her in a while. Hi, Amanda. I'm going to go now. Hi, everybody.
Hi, Geraldine.
Okay. Make Rand take you to lunch after this.
Do you want to go to lunch with me after this?
I have more obligations, unfortunately.
Lunch with me on a weekday.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
I love you.
Quit bumping me with your butt.
I love you, Amanda.
I love you.
Bye, Geraldine. Love you. Oh, man. The joys of working from home. All right. So, for example, in here, this is a list of the bio keywords of this in-house PR people. And I like this one for risk management. My guess is, ooh, yeah, I like that. I have a theory. I think this is Epstein files related. This bump here. God, it was so awkward, Amanda, when they asked me, that Verge reporter called me up and was like, hey, here's all these emails from Jeffrey Epstein to a bunch of SEO people. Would you answer a bunch of questions? And I was like, feels so creepy and weird reading these emails.
Oh, gosh.
But so you can click, Ted, you can click these and literally do a SparkToro search for people whose profile contains risk management. Or you could describe your audience, in more specific terms and then get it in there. Yeah. Oh, I think we are at the end of our technical webinar time. Amanda, yeah, where can folks get the recording of this?
Okay, so the recording will be available on this very page in a few minutes. And then I'm also going to send it to you all along with the slides, probably in the next 4 hours or so. And I need to drop in that link. Well, I also want to make sure you all sign up for our next office hours, because
that one with Mike is going to be
the one with Mike. Yeah. So our next office hours will be on January 14th. We're going to talk about the differences between, can I say this, between SEO and GEO? Is that correct?
You mean goose egg omelets?
Yeah, like how that's different from seal egg omelets.
Yeah, whatever people want to call it. Yeah, basically like AI, getting into AI versus getting into traditional search engines.
Yes.
Yeah. I can't remember. Does Mike like to call it Yeah, EIEIO. I like Sharon. I'm with you.
Yeah. Or optimizing for SEO versus LLMs or Google versus LLMs. I've got some work to do with that registration page, but we already have like 30 people signed up. So
Amazing.
please, friends,
Wonderful.
come join us and stay tuned from another email from me. We'll clog your
Woo.
inbox. No, I won't.
All right, folks.
All right.
Thank you
You,
so much
Rand.
for your
Thank you, everyone.
participation. We'll see you next
Bye,
time. Have a
friends.
happy holiday season.
Yeah. Happy holidays.
Yay.